Well, hi, everybody. Jeff Slakey and Spencer Hughes on the Daybreak Show. We're continuing our candidate conversations. This year, I've reached out to all the folks who are running for the Legislative District 35 in the great state of Washington in both positions. I'm happy to have now with me via Zoom video conference, Darcy Huffman. She's running in the position 2. And in this race, there's 3 candidates. So the top 2 will move on into the general election in November. So first things first, Darcy, thanks for being on with me, and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. Well, I grew up in Snohomish, so just outside of Snohomish back when it was a very small town. I had a regular rural upbringing. My dad was a member of the union, Local 32, so he worked for Boeing and Lockheed and a lot of those businesses. So I had a great upbringing, rode horses, was part of 4-H, was a campfire girl. I can tell you about the mints. So it was great. I loved it there. We ended up moving away to Kansas for a while. That's where my family was from. And married somebody in the military, so I've traveled all over the world, really. And but always knew I would come back and make my home here in Washington, because I like to say that this is my dirt. So I have lived here for the last 24 years and have made a beautiful life here, and hope that other people can make a beautiful life here too.
You can see Darcy's website and learn more about her at darcyhuffman.com. Again, I'll put the links to this and the Facebook page on the show notes. So why now? Why are you deciding to throw your hat into the ring for this race this year?
Well, I have always been interested in politics. I went to Kansas State University and have a degree in mass communications, and I had dreamed about being a political writer. But then I got married, and so that didn't work out. So, but I've always been interested in politics. And when I moved back here to Washington, I purposely moved into this area so that I could be close to the Capitol and be a part of politics, or at least feel like I was a part of politics. So I worked for 25 years in banking, and I have heard so many stories and seen so many people struggling to make ends meet. I mean, overdrafts are real, people, and even now people are having a hard time making ends meet. And after 25 years in banking and finance and risk management, I went to work for a really large Lutheran church in Olympia, and there I saw what I knew was happening, but just did not know how bad things were for so many people. And so it really opened my eyes. And I sat in meeting after meeting after meeting and listening to groups, not being able to make ends meet, not being able to help all the people that they wanted to help. And one day I just thought, okay, I've got to do more. So being involved in politics and religion is sometimes a little bit different, but for me, it felt like it was the right time to move on and to do something bigger and better with my life. So I decided about a year ago that I was going to run for office. I quit my job and took a little time away to kind of get my head clear, and then I decided that now was the time to help people. And so I actually announced in January, before all of this was started.
We'll get to how the politics and politicking has been with this in a moment, but the 35th is a large, predominantly rural community, with the north part being into Kitsap County and the south into Thurston, but the bulk of it there is Mason. And rural communities, as you know, growing up too, can often be overshadowed perhaps by their urban counterparts, the big city, Seattle, or even the I-5 corridor. How best do you think you'll be able to express the needs and the wants and desires from folks in the 35th to be able to work with everybody, even in the big cities and all around the state?
Well, right now, I don't feel like we have a voice in the room where decisions are being made, right? So the Democrats have been in the majority for several years now. And while everybody has a voice, right, but big decisions are made in the Democratic caucus room. And right now, we don't have enough rural voices to be heard. So it's not just a voice for the 35th, but it's a voice for all rural communities. And so we need to have a voice in the room. And as I said in the Kitsap Sun, I said, I have a pretty loud voice. So I think I would be able to step up and say, hey, that might work great in Seattle, but that is not going to work in Mason County. And I think we need to have that voice, and I want to be that voice.
So then what are the priorities? What are you going to bring to Olympia?
So, when I started all of this, I wanted to work on housing, I wanted to work on healthcare, and I wanted to work on economic development. And I think I was spot on. So even now, those things are now not just important, but now they are urgent, right? So we really need to work on those things, especially our healthcare. I've probably called 5,000 people over the last few months. And I have heard story after story about how people are not able to make ends meet because of their healthcare costs. I mean, in my own personal family, I had a couple who the wife was fighting cancer, and the husband couldn't afford his medication, and so he stopped taking his medication so that his wife could have the healthcare that she needed to have. In a country like ours, in a state like this, that is unacceptable to me, and we need to do something about that. We need to make sure that people have housing, and adequate housing and affordable housing. Nobody should pay 50% of their income for a house that could actually be falling down around them. I mean, that is crazy and ridiculous. And economic development is super important. I mean, Mason County, it got left behind in our last recovery. If you talked about how big our district is, it's 1,649.1 square miles. So it is huge, right? And yeah, the cities, the counties south of us and the counties north of us, they seem to recover. Their unemployment rate was around 4.5 before this crisis. Mason County's was 6.5. So it was lower. And so many of the people who live in Mason County don't just work one job, they work two jobs in order to make ends meet. So we need to do better at getting economic development. We need some family wage jobs out there, some manufacturing, clean manufacturing jobs. We need internet in order to be able to do that. So broadband is going to be, again, an urgent issue for us in the rural communities, because we can't bring in high quality jobs if we don't have high quality broadband.
Talk about some of the challenges in the upcoming session. As we've seen, the monies coming into the state coffers have just dried up because of the virus, and people are not out spending money. We get our money from a sales tax, and so that money is just not around right now. That is going to be difficult as you move through session, as we look to the budgets and things like that. So that's got to be a big challenge. Do you have others that you're anticipating if you make it in?
Well, yeah, the budget is going to be, of course, the big priority. And I think that now is a really great time to try to figure out just how we do fund our government. I mean, we've talked for years and years and years about how unfair our tax system is. And this, again, has really brought it to life. The former governor of Texas, Dan Richards, once said that life is not fair, but government should be. And I think that is very, very true. And one of the ways we look at that is, or one of the ways that I look at that is, our tax system is just unfair. And it doesn't support all of the things that we really need to have. And it's certainly not going to support it now. So we need to put things on the table. We need to put ideas on the table, and not ideas that will take years and years and years to pass, right? This is an immediate crisis. So we need immediate answers to this. And while I may not be the smartest person in the room, right, I am good at building bridges, and I am good at bringing people to the table and getting them to make a decision. And that's what we're going to have to do. We're just going to have to think not outside the box, but just create a whole new box.
Well, you lead into a great next question here. I was just going to ask, how if you could share a time that you remember that you were able to work, maybe not necessarily with someone across the aisle or in a different political party, but just someone who had a different background perhaps, and everybody coalesced together to find a common goal.
Well, I worked in a church for 10 years. And so when you work in a church, you bring together a lot of people with different ideas on how to get things done. And part of working in that church was managing a 45,000 square foot building, which is huge. And it needed to have a lot of repairs. We needed to do things differently. And so I was able to bring people together to come to a common goal of creating a safe workspace, a safe place for us to worship and to bring in community groups. We managed to put a roof on a big, huge building. We managed to recarpet it, and all of these kinds of things take compromise because just like people in politics, people in churches don't always see eye to eye. But we think about what brings us together, right? So what is the common goal? The common goal is to make sure that we take care of the people of Washington, and that has to be the common goal. And how we get there, that's always a work in progress.
I'm talking right now with Darcy Huffman. She's running in the 35th Legislative District in position 2 over Zoom video conference. So now, how has this been for you? You announce in January, so you get a couple months where you can maybe be out talking with folks, and then we're basically back in now doing interviews like this. How has it been? Obviously not maybe the best way to jump into the first time around.
Well, we've done a lot of pivoting. This was not obviously the thing that I wanted, the way that I wanted to do this. I wanted to be out talking to people. You can probably tell by the 2 minutes that you've talked to me that I'm very much an extrovert. And so I love being around people. And while at the beginning of my campaign, I was able to do that and there was a lot of energy, then we had to figure out how to do all of this by Zoom and email and Facebook pages and Twitter accounts and all of that kind of stuff. And so it has really, I'm not going to kid you, it really has been a challenge. But I've pivoted my whole life. And so this is just one more pivot moment, I think, in my life. And I think this is how it's going to be for a while. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what session will look like. It's definitely not going to look like the session that, that I had anticipated being in. So we're just going to have to keep pivoting. But I think we're getting the message out there. We've got signs out everywhere. We're doing kind of almost going back to the way things used to be done years ago. So newspaper ads, signage, mailers, letters, all of those kinds of things. I mean, I am kind of disappointed. I was going to have a fundraiser at the Skyline drive-in theater tomorrow. It was actually supposed to, and I had it all organized. It was all ready to go. And then I don't get to have it.
Sure.
So that was kind of a disappointment, but I'm always a Pollyanna. So maybe in August we'll still be able to have that.
We'll find out what happens in August as the ballots are out now, and you see Darcy Huffman's name there for 35th Legislative District in position 2. There are 3 candidates running in this race. The top 2 move on to the general election in November. Again, darcyhuffman.com, the website, and I'll put the links to that in the show notes here as this continues our candidate conversations with all the candidates that are running for the Legislative District 35 here in the great state of Washington. Darcy, thanks for spending some time with me to get a chance to know you and talk a little bit more.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'll see you again, I'm sure.
And good luck as we move through the primary and into November.
Hey, don't forget to be a voter.
Thank you very much.